Kingdom Center for Ambassadors. My name is Elder Tori, and I am delighted to be back on this platform once again to be able to minister the word. Is definitely never taken lightly or overlooked, but it is an honor to be here to be able to minister. I also want to take a moment to make sure I thank our senior pastor, Dr. Larry, for mentoring me and allowing me to be here as well. So, with that being said, well, before we jump right on in, I want to make sure I remind you guys to be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. There is a plethora of teachings, and definitely would encourage you guys to go back and check out the word and start studying with us from our digital library on YouTube. So, with that being said, we're actually going to get started this time. This evening during this session, we'll specifically be talking about purpose. And I'm really excited to really dig into this because there are so many ideas, misconception, wrong ideas, religious ideas that come into play when we talk about purpose and what purpose is. Because many times people will say things like, oh, well, God has a plan for your life and God has this and that, and just do God's plan and his will for your life and you'll be okay. Well, do you even know how to get in the will? Do you know how to find out what your purpose is? And that's what we're actually going to be really getting into today. Understanding what purpose is, understanding why it's important. So right here, we have a few questions that I hope to answer, I should say, while during this study session. So what is purpose? We're going to get into that because, like I said, there are so many ideas, misconceptions, just bad thinking that surround what purpose is. Many people think that their job is their purpose. Well, what may be happening on that job is that you may be operating in your gift, and we'll get into that too. But what is my purpose? Why is purpose important? See, we have so many people here now in the world that are like, what are my purpose? They're asking these questions, but they don't have an idea of how to get there, or they're looking in the wrong spots to answer questions about purpose, and they're still just on this merry-go-round, just continually looking. And purpose is important. It's important for us to understand that because, yes, it is true that Elohim does have purpose for us. He does have a will and a plan for our lives, but we can miss it, or we can just be ignorant of how to know what that purpose is, or we could just be ignorant of understanding why it's important. See, some people may not know their purpose because they simply don't value the idea or value understanding or knowing what their purpose is. Okay, the next one is, how do we discover purpose? Again, that's something that we're going to talk about because there are so many people that go to college, and I've heard people say, well, you go to college to find yourself. Wrong. I went to college and came out probably more confused than before I went. But the word is what got me in my purpose and operating. And then, what's the purpose of finding our purpose? See, why are people looking for purpose? See, why are people desiring to know what they're supposed to do with their lives? Because many people, we're told, especially in this Americanized, I'll say that the Americanized the Western thinking, the American dream is pushed at a very early age. See, children in America are taught, go to school, get a good job, and you'll be happy. You have a few kids and you settle down. Well, how many people went that route and they're miserable today? How many people went that route and still don't know what they're supposed to do, or feel like there's so much more? They feel like, there's supposed to be more out of life. How many people have you heard that said they had these $1 million jobs and they quit because they were miserable, but they had that American dream? They were operating in what the culture told us to do, right? So there is purpose in finding out our purpose. And how do I know I'm in purpose? So that's something that we're definitely going to talk about as we dig in today. So I mentioned this briefly, ideas surrounding purpose. And so right here, I just have a few things that a quick Google search on. And so one of the ideas that came up when I really did Google what is purpose, because I wanted to see what I want to see what the answers were as people, as the psychologists and the people with the big degrees were saying what purpose was. And so the Google definition that we see here is to psychologists, purpose is abiding intent, is an abiding intention to achieve a long-term goal that is both personally meaningful and makes a positive mark on the world. Okay, so I can rip that to shreds right now because that is if you are connected to a wrong source. And what I mean by being connected to a wrong source, there, if you have ideas that don't come from the Father, then that is connected to a wrong source. That's you're getting your ideas from you're getting ideas of darkness. And that's something that we're going to talk about too, but I just want to mention it right here. Another idea that was surrounding purpose, why you do something or why something exists. Okay. So that's something that we could kind of work with that, but let's keep going. And this is something that you would hear many new moms say. Well, I won't say many new moms say, but I have heard moms say, I have lost my sense of purpose. Well, why is that? Were you ever really in purpose for you to even make that comment? And why is it that having children has become a burden in your life? You see what you see? Do you guys see what I'm getting at? To make sure that we don't have these cultural thinking and ideas in our belief system. Because one thing is that the word says that I am Yahweh and I change not. And I say that because ideas of purpose, what the world presents, can change. You know, once upon a time, the government said that only a female woman, and a man, both born female, both born male, those were the only ones that could get married. But the culture has changed and determined that a man can marry a man, a woman can marry a woman, a transgender can do this and that. The culture has changed. And so this is crucially important when it comes to purpose, because the culture can give you a purpose. This culture and this westernized thinking, or whatever part of the world you may be living in, can tell you what you were supposed to do. They will tell you, they will give you a purpose. And many people, because culture is so ingrained in us, and because people are so connected to the culture that they believe that, and they're so connected to the culture and don't have kingdom concepts in it. It's easy to accept that. It's easy to accept ideas, like I mentioned with a new mom saying that I've lost my sense of purpose. So we have to make sure, let's start before we even start trying to find purpose. What are my ideas surrounding purpose? Where did I get these ideas from? And many times ideas can come from when you were a child that simply needs to be uprooted. As simple as that. Many times as children, we have been, and not just in the realm of purpose, which is what I'm dealing with, we were just simply taught wrong. And even as adults, we were just simply taught things wrong. Well, now it's time to start asking those questions and making sure that every thought that we have is aligning with the word, aligning with Elohim. All right. So this next one is jobs. Jobs can give a false sense of purpose. And they can. And I'll share an example and we'll move on. I had this particular job as a sexual assault advocate, and I even started an organization and all of that. And I was like, this is my purpose. I'm supposed to help women. This is something that I've healed from, and I can do this and I can do that. And I was really pushing the idea of encouraging people to talk about their past traumas and talk about if they had been any through sexual abuse or sexual assault. Because at that time, me having the wrong conception, I really believed that talking about your problems would help you heal. And the Holy Spirit came very clear and corrected me and showed me that many people are talking and aren't getting anywhere. And so I give an example of that because I had that organization. I was working as a sexual assault advocate, thinking that this is my purpose, thinking that this is what I was supposed to do. And I was wrong. And that was my job. And the reason I share that is because I love that job. That was one of my favorite jobs, because I really did enjoy what I did. And I'm not saying that you can't, I'll just leave that. I really did enjoy that job. But what I realized through that process is that Yes, that was a job. What I done was that I developed a skill set and I was using it and it brought me joy. But, well, I'll say happiness versus joy, but I wasn't operating in purpose. And when I realized that about the talking and things of that, when I started realizing what purpose really was, I end up quitting that job. As much as I love that job and as much time that I had dedicated to putting myself in a position to have that job and that organization that I had at the same time, I let it go. And I'm not saying that I could have done that, I couldn't continue to do those things. But what I'm saying is that knowing my purpose and wanting to operate fully in the purpose that Elohim designed for me, it was easy for me to let that go. See, once you discover purpose, once you know what your purpose is, and you start actively taking steps, not just hearing it, but actually operating in that, it's easy for you to let some things go. All right. So we are going to keep on moving to our next note. So we have to make sure that we don't have ideas of darkness in our belief system as it comes to dealing with our purpose. I want to go to this note really quick and we'll go back to that. So I've mentioned this a couple times is we have to check that thought. Where did this thought or idea come from that I am holding in my belief system? So right here, the source of thought is more important than the thought itself. And it really is. And one thing that when we hear the word source, another word for source is father. Okay. And so right here, there are two sources of thought. There's a source of darkness. So a source of darkness is any idea or thought that is outside of the word, that does not align with the kingdom of heaven, doesn't align with the scriptures. Okay. And I want to pull up a scripture really quick. Let me get that up. Because we can be connected to the wrong father. And what I mean, father source, I'm gonna give you guys an example of it. Yeshua told people that they were connected to the wrong source of thought. So right here, let me share my screen. Let me pull that back up. Right here, the word of Elohim reads, and this is Yochanan. Yochanan 8:44. It says, "You belong to your father, the devil. You want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his naive language, for he is a liar and the father of lies." So any idea, any thought that is rooted, stop sharing. Okay. Any idea, any thought that does not come from Elohim, does not come from the word, guess where it's coming from? It's coming from the enemy. And the enemy has purposely, intentfully put misconceptions and wrong ideas in people surrounding purpose. See, the thing is about purpose, when you have to go to the Father. You have to go to him to see. He created you. Elohim created you. So yes, he knows what your purpose is. He knows why he created you. He knows why he put you here at this particular time. So as we are dealing with this journey of purpose, you got to make sure you go back to the creator. And that's what we're going to get into. But I want to show that ideas can come from a source of darkness and a source of light. And it's so easy to see. One thing the word tells us is that the enemy is crafty. He's deceptive. And the fact that he can have many people thinking that their jobs are their purpose, or thinking that everything but the right thing is their purpose. And many people, misconception can have a person thinking that they're going 100 in the right direction and you done went -50 in the wrong direction. And so that's why I'm really kind of honing in on this check the thought. You have to check the thought of where those ideas that you have surrounding purpose, because once you realize that those thoughts that you have surrounding purpose, you can't let them linger. You have to truly uproot those thoughts and make an exchange. So if you had had ideas of purpose that came from Satan, well, you got some work you got to do. You have to uproot that so that the Father can implant his ideas. But first, we got to check that thought. We got to check our belief system. And so that's going to take us to our next point, our next note right here, where you have to go through the 6 stages of conformity. So you have to go through, and this is something that I live. I'll say I live by this, because many times if a thought comes into my mind, see, the word tells us that we submit every thought to the word of Elohim. And so many times if there's a thought that comes into my mind, I'm like, okay, let me check this thought. Because the thing is about thoughts operate like a seed. And what happens when we plant a seed? That seed takes root. First, it takes root, it gets established, and then it grows and it creates fruit with other seed. So it's the same thing with thoughts. If we have a bad thought and it takes root, then it's going to produce other seed. And so that's why I'm always, every thought that comes in, and I used to let thoughts just ride. But the thing is, you have to bring every thought to submission. And so if you have a thought that is in your belief system, and the thing is, thoughts, the way we think is going to produce the way that you behave, because the word tells us, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So if you are going through the process, and we're going to get to purpose, I promise, if you're going through the process of trying to find your purpose, trying to find what the Father says purpose is in my life. See, the thing is, if you realize that you had bad thoughts, you got to go through this process. You got to kick that thought out. You got to uproot it. See, right here, a precept is the original idea. All right. And the only truth is original truth. So if you got an idea that you accepted when you were 5 years old and it's still in you, and I know it may be hard to uproot it, but you got to go through this process. So it's an idea. A precept is the original idea. And then you got your a conception. So that's a thought that you agree with. Once you agree with that thought, it becomes part of you and you start to live by that. Then it goes into your belief system, which is a set of convictions. So these are a bunch of thoughts that are really running your life and determining how you behave. And so then you have your ideology and eventually your lifestyle. And so I share this because if you accepted the American dream at 5, and now you going to college, and the American dream of go to school, get a good job. Oh, sorry, me stop there. Go to school, get a good job so I can have a career and honestly get in a bunch of debt. If you accepted that idea, if you accepted that precept at 5 and now you're 35, well, now you got to uproot it. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it won't be a difficult process and that it won't be an easy process, but it's possible if you do the work and start pulling down those thoughts and changing. Because once we change the way that we think, that's when our ideas change. So we have to make sure that when it comes to purpose, that we're not fooled by what culture has told us, that we're not fooled by what grandma or mama and them said. If what grandma and mama and them said wasn't aligning with the word, you have to uproot it. And I know we love our parents and we love our grandma and mama and them, but if they didn't teach us right, we have the responsibility to uproot it. All right. So let's move on to our next note. And so our next note is we're going to talk about how do we discover purpose? Well, first off, you got to go back to your manufacturer. I said it at the very beginning. Elohim created you. So he knows your purpose. He knows your design. The word says that he knows even the hairs on your head. I don't have that scripture up here, but it tells us that he knows the hairs on our head. So if he knows how many hairs you have on your head, he can tell you your purpose. And I don't know about y'all, but that is exciting to me because y'all know how hair is a lot. Anyways, But you have to go back to the manufacturer right here. So let's look at this reference. It says, therefore, I formed you in the womb. I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I anointed you as a prophet before the nations. And so right here, if you look at this, that was my mistake. I didn't put the reference in here, but, and I can get that fixed. But that is in Yermahu right there. That's Jeremiah. But it's in that very first chapter when Elohim had basically told Jeremiah, you're a prophet, you're going out, like this is what I told you to do. And Jeremiah, he was just like, oh, I'm too young, I'm too this and that, or whatever. And the Elohim said, I set you apart in the womb. I knew you. See, he knew us before we even knew ourselves. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? So we have to go back to him, especially born again believers. Go back to the Father. See, you got everything you need in you right now to operate out of purpose. Every single day you can operate out of purpose. But first, you got to go back to the manufacturer. Okay. So let's keep on moving right here. So it says, right here. Yeah, so go back to the manufacturer. He knows everything about you. And when he created you, he finished you. So y'all can stop saying, I know many times people use the phrase, God's still working on me. But no, you're just saying that because you don't want to give certain things up. But even as we deal with purpose, he created you to operate in your purpose. He created you with the gifts. He created you with everything you need to operate in that design and how he wanted. Let me stop. When he created you, he finished you. He put everything in you, every talent, every gift, everything that your design was put together to help you complete your purpose. And so many times, and I bring that up because the word tells us right here, it says, for your gifts and the calling of Elohim are revocable. So gifts, they aren't taken back. And so that's another reason why it's so important to make sure that we discover our purpose, because many times people discover their gifts before they discover their purpose, and they are using their gifts out of order and still wondering, that they realize that they have these gifts and they use it and they work on the gift, they develop the gift, and that's fine. Yes, you can work on your gifts and develop them. You should develop your gifts, but we have to know why we have those gifts. For example, many singers, right? They realize they can sing. Okay, great, you can sing. But they go out and become professional singers. And you guys know Hollywood. You guys know how Hollywood looks right now. And all these singers, there's a bunch of people in Hollywood that can sing. But who are they glorifying? Are they using that gift to really glorify the Father? And I'm going to tell you the answer is no, because look at Beyonce. It's no glorification of Elohim in that. That ain't nothing but Satan. And if you listen to Beyonce, you need to stop right now. And I don't mean to be harsh or anything like that, but I bring that example up. Yes, the girl can sing, but look at what she's doing with the gift. There's no purpose in that. Satan is all up in that. But let me go back to the notes. So we have to make sure, don't just focus so much on the gift. See, many times people, they hone in on that gift and all of a sudden, oh, I am music. Oh, or I am this, I am that. You developed your gift, and many jobs realize the giftings and the talents in people, and they manipulate those gifts. They abuse those gifts because they're getting everything that they want out of people, out of individuals. And many people, because they don't have the right concepts around purpose, because they don't know their purpose for their lives, that they go right along into it and they accepted it. So that's why it's so important to make sure, don't just focus on your gift. Don't just focus on the fact that, oh, well, I know I have a purpose and God gifted me with these gifts, so I must be doing right. You can be using your gift. You can be the best singer in the world and still out of purpose and not operating in the way that the Father has designed you to do, has designed you to operate. So it's important to make sure we have to go through this process of understanding our purpose, but we have to first discover who we are. And part of that is going back to the manufacturer. So let's go on to our next point of self-discovery. See, I promise we're getting the purpose. We just got to build a little bit of a foundation before we get into purpose, right? So right here is self-discovery. See, self-discovery is key because if you don't go through the process of self-discovery and understanding who you are and why you are here, anybody and anything can tell you who you are and why you are here. Because so we must go back to Elohim so he can tell us who we are and why we are here. So these are 5 questions that I would encourage you guys to get the answers to. And I'm going to give you a warning. As you answer these questions, really answer these questions, you may not like some of the answers, but that's okay. Because if you position yourself for the Father to bring correction, see, the word tells us he corrects those that he loves. And so if you position yourself and you open yourself up to the Holy Spirit for him to minister to you and start answering these questions, you putting yourself in a good position. So the first question is, who am I? The word tells us that he knit us together in our mother's womb, right? So go back to Elohim. If he made me, he created me, he knows he knows who I am. Clearly, he knows who you are, and you don't know who you are. So go back to him and ask him, okay, where did I come from? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? See, that's the golden question that many people are asking because they don't know who they are. And if you don't know who you are, you cannot effectively operate it. Well, what am I supposed to do? I said that wrong. If you don't know what you are supposed to do, how can you operate in purpose? So we gotta know who we are. We gotta know who we are connected to, and he can pour that into us. And where am I going? Because I'm gonna tell y'all something. Once you discover who you are, and when you really start operating in purpose, see, now is after you do that, it's time to start focusing and refocusing and making sure that I'm still connected and operating in my design, operating in the purpose that Elohim designed for me. Okay. So I'm gonna pull that back up and make sure you guys pause the video, spend some time really trying to get the answers to these questions, because I have talked to people who have actually gone through this process and answered these questions, and they was like, I have been on this earth for years, and I realized that I'm not in purpose. But that's not a bad spot to be, because then the Father can really pour into you and you can be who he wants you to be. So let's move on to our next note of what is purpose. What is purpose? Well, we're about to answer that. Purpose is a self-discovery of who you are and why you are here. And the only way to know that is to go back to the manufacturer. Go back and ask him, be before him, understanding that, okay, you got to first discover who you are and go back, and he'll start answering those questions. So once we have purpose, then there comes the vision. So vision is a revelation of purpose. So vision is knowing my purpose and operating in what I'm supposed to do. So right here, I want to go down to let's read this right here. It says, the Lord Elohim took the man and put him in the garden to tend and to keep. So right here, this is where Elohim was talking to Adam, and he played in it. And right here, he put him in the garden. See, Adam had everything that he needed. Elohim created him with everything he needed and placed everything in Akabulim, the garden. Let me stop. He had everything he needed. All he had to do was operate. So right here, it's telling us that, well, okay, so let me start over. So he had everything that he needed, right? So also let's read this other one. It says, then Elohim said, let us make man in our image and our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the air, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. Elohim blessed them. Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. So right here, when he placed Adam in the garden, he was given purpose and he was given instructions on how to do that. And so we have to go through the same process going back to the Father, because once we go back to the Father and we're really seeking him on what we're supposed to do, he will show you exactly who you are and show you how to do it. One thing that I mentioned at the beginning is that before we were created, we were complete. So it's not that. So once you find out your purpose, you're not on your own. Once you find out your purpose, it's not like, oh, well, what do I do now? See, the thing about knowing our purpose is that once you find out your purpose, you have to make the decision to remain in position, to remain connected. So I'm going to hit this one last point and then we'll have to stop because we're about out of time. Where is it? Right here. Okay, so right here it says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that doesn't bear fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will even remain fruitful. You are already clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Okay? So I bring that out because many times you don't want to jump in and out the boat when you find out your purpose. See, once you find out your purpose, see, that's not the time to decide you're going to jump ship. That's not the time to decide that, okay, well, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just going to go out here and do it. No, see, that's the time where you have to make sure that you are remaining connected to the Father, continually seeking him. The word tells us if we commit our ways to him, he will direct our path. And the thing about that is that, especially when we're operating in purpose, see, that's something that we can connect to and really get impregnated with that concept, because operating in purpose is prosperity. Operating in purpose, we have success, but it's success according to the kingdom. And see, the thing about purpose is that many people, they say they want to know what their purpose for their life, but what they're looking for is fulfillment. And that fulfillment can only come by operating in the purpose that Elohim has given to us. So we have to make sure that we remain connected to the branch. Once you find out your purpose, don't stop being connected to the Father. Don't stop submitting to your Father to the Father. At that time, that's when you submit even more. You open your mind up more. See, the thing is, the Holy Spirit is always speaking to us, but are you listening? And for many people, the answer is no. They only listen certain times a day. So we have to make sure that once we go through the process of self-discovery, once we really know what purpose is, that we remain connected to our Father, remain connected to that branch. And then also one more thing I want to share, and we are really going to wrap it up, is that we have to be aware that there are purpose stealers. See, the enemy, he don't want you to know what your purpose is. He don't even want you to be connected to the Father. He wants you to be cut off as much as he possibly can. Because once you start operating in purpose, and once you start doing the will of the Father, and once you know that you're operating in purpose, see, the enemy, he wants to cut you off, and he's going to come. I'm going to tell you that. So, and once you start operating in purpose and the enemy come and this is going haywire and this is going wrong, y'all can say, well, Elder Tori told me that the enemy was coming, because I did. But right here, we must be aware of purpose stealers. And I'm just going to mention them. You got to get, be aware of purpose stealers. Make sure you're connected to the Father, the right source. Remain in me and I will remain in you. See, the thing is, you got to realize that purpose is about him. It ain't even about you. You get fulfilled from doing the will of the Father, but operating in purpose is about Elohim. So that's another thing that we got to go through. We got to stop thinking about those three critical areas of me, myself, and I, but switch that mindset to what does the Father want from me? Why does he want me to operate in purpose? It's about him. The independent mindset Oh, yes. It's so much independence running around here. And another word for independence is rebellion. Yes, you can't operate in the purpose that Elohim designed for you and you out here miss independent. Stop right now. Switch that mindset. And then the next one is, and I'm just mentioning them. Oh, well, that's it. Okay. And busyness must have been on another slide, but being super busy, being caught up in what you got to do, that again, that goes back to those three critical areas of me, myself, and I, and what I got to do. But do you love the Father enough to submit your life to Him and operate in purpose and change your life, change your decisions and your actions to operate in the purpose that He has for you? And instead of, because many people are just taking Elohim along with them and doing their own thing and saying, Father, bless it. Father, this is what I want to do. And Father, I know I got purpose, but I'm going to do XYZ 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to seek you for the purpose that you have for me. So I ask you today, are you operating in purpose? And if that answer is no, then you know what to do. You got a little bit of homework. So I leave you with this word. I hope you learned something. Again, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I speak shalom.